What is up, y'all? Welcome back to Rip the Net. We're super excited to be here with y'all. Thank you for tuning in, bringing you soccer, basketball, and culture. Just our reactions and our commentary. My name is Eric.
I'm Dre.
I'm Alexi, man. Eric, your voice went mad deep for that intro. What you doing, bro? Come on.
You were like, welcome to Rip the Net.
To be fair, I was just eating some grapes, and so my voice got a little, something happened. Something happened, but anyways, man, super excited to be here with y'all. Super excited to get into it. It's been an eventful weekend. So there's just a couple topics we want to get into, but I'm expecting, good conversation, expecting lots of opinions, lots of discussion. So excited to see what y'all got. First order of business, how y'all doing? How are you guys feeling?
It's a wild weekend, I'm not gonna lie. I think February, we're recording on February 2nd, but February 1st, 2025 was very eventful, let's put it that way. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, man. It was emotional. It was emotional. A lot going on. A lot of tears in a lot of communities. And, the future is uncertain. I sound real ominous saying that, but
Yeah,
it's a lot going on.
All the events that took place this weekend, I think there's just a lot of new beginnings we're going to see take place. So I'm excited to get into it. First order of business is the blockbuster trade between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks. The Lakers received Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris, and the Mavericks received Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and the 2029 first-round pick from the Lakers. And then the Jazz received Jalen Hood-Schifino, the LA Clippers 2025 second-round pick, and the Mavericks 2025 second-round pick as well. This trade came in, I want to say around like 1 a.m. last night, just right after midnight. I don't know about y'all, but I had like 3 separate group chats that were just going crazy. And, lots of stuff going on. So just raw reactions. Where were you when you heard about the trade? How did you hear about the trade? Let me hear it.
Yeah, so I don't even know what I was doing, honestly. I think I was probably just gaming or something. But I just opened Twitter. Actually, I think I saw it on ESPN first, but I didn't see the original Shams tweet. I saw like a ESPN, I guess, confirming it or something because he works for them now. And like another Discord I was in I posted in there and people started going crazy over it. But the main thing I saw, because then once I saw it on, I think ESPN on YouTube, I went to Twitter, and then like trending was hashtag hacked, because then everyone was wondering. It was like before even getting to the trade, everyone was like, surely Shams or Shams, I don't know how to pronounce it, but he was hacked. Because no one believed that a trade this. We'll get to opinions on it, I guess, but a trade of this magnitude could be real. So me myself, I was like started digging. At first I was like, okay, this is just the trade. It is what it is. But everyone's saying hacked. I was like, was he hacked? So I started digging myself. I was like, I need some verification. But then I think maybe like an hour later, he went up on Sports Center or something on ESPN. And it was actually talking on video. So people were like, okay, we can't deny this anymore.
Yeah. Honestly, I was one of the people who was so convinced that Shams had been hacked. I was literally just scrolling. I was just scrolling on my phone. I think I was like procrastinating. Like I wanted to do something. Like I was in the process of like mentally preparing to like do something productive, and then just caught myself scrolling, and like 3 group chats started blowing up, and man, I really thought Shams had been hacked. I was so confused. I did not know what to think. I honestly, and maybe people will think I'm exaggerating, my heart sank. Like, my heart literally sank as if something tragic had taken place. Like, I don't know why I had that reaction, but I think I was just in such shock. And it had already been such a roller coaster of a night. We'll get to the Royal Rumble later in this recording. but just did not understand what had been happening, what was going on. Really, like, did not understand what was going on. So I was definitely one of those people who was convinced that it was fake. How about you, Alexi? How'd you hear about the news?
Yeah, man, I was taking my morning dump, opening Twitter as usual, as you do. And I saw it there. I flinched a little on that seat. I was shocked in the moment. I mean, I wasn't expecting a trade like that, because even being like kind of outside of basketball, just getting into it, these are two massive names. And for something like that to happen in the middle of the season, and seemingly without the knowledge of either the players too, it's just so bizarre. Because I mean, as we know in soccer, like, the players are pretty heavily involved on whether they get loaned out and like their intentions and where they want to go. And this just seemed like a surprise to everyone, in that like the trade was only like agreed upon by like the highest parties. So yeah, I was on that seat for an extra few minutes processing.
Yeah. It's been a while. I think we're living. Well, one, it's been a while since the Lakers have made any substantial move. So I think that was, at least for me, a big part of the shock to begin with. Obviously, the trade within itself. You read the headline, Luka for AD, and that's already mind blowing. But just seeing that the Lakers had made a substantial move, I think completely took me by surprise. But yeah, I totally get you on that. And it's good to see that just my entire Instagram feed was just full of reactions, full of shock. I had a couple of Laker fans in my feed celebrating and just being so happy and over the top. But now that we've spoken on our raw reactions, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the trade. So, Dre, let me hear. What are you thinking?
Lakers always have it nice, don't they? Like, they just, I mean, maybe it's just something about being in LA. Not something. It's a great place to live, apparently. But, well, actually, I don't know recently. But that franchise, well, realistic things have been happening in the world where it's not necessarily the best place to live.
I have a great time editing this podcast.
Yeah, but that franchise just generally has it super nice. I know LA is just a very generally an attractive destination. Even though this isn't necessarily the case for this trade, because this happened without the players knowing, but just throughout their history, most of the massive names in the NBA, in the history of the NBA, have at one point or another made a stop in LA. And recently, it looked like, post Kobe's time there, they're on a bit of a downward trend. Then all of a sudden, they get the next biggest player in the game, LeBron James. Even then, they get their Mickey Mouse ring. He brings in AD, his running mate. And after the Mickey Mouse ring, we're like, okay, doesn't look like they're going anywhere, though. LeBron's just going to ride it out, see if he can get Bronny in through nepotism. And then we're just going to ride it out for the next 2 years until he retires. They're probably not going to contend again, but he's in LA. He has his podcast and his all his movie stuff and production company. It works out for his family. His family set up out there. But now, even though the Lakers seemed like they were going nowhere, they all of a sudden get potentially the next best player for the next 10 years in the NBA, Luka Doncic. Obviously, you could say you can throw out SGA's balling all the time, whatever. Tatum, people of that around the same age who are also on that like MVP candidate level. But to me, anyway, Luka is the most talented of those. I'm not saying he's the best all-around player, because we know he can't defend necessarily. And clearly this is not a win now move for LA, because Luka and LeBron, as dope as their playstyles are, and as similar as they are in some ways, they aren't necessarily actually the best fit in terms of playing together. It'll be fun for sure, but it doesn't even matter, because the Lakers already weren't in win now mode. So the fact that they got Luka and that doesn't help them get to win now mode They don't care. This year, next year, it doesn't matter. Obviously, a lot of money is going to be made, but this is for the next 7-10 years. Now they have the potential best player in the league over that time, and then they can build around him, and they get rid of AD, who was 32, injury prone. I know he's been a bit better recently, but generally over his career, super injury prone, and give him to the Mavericks, who they're in win now mode, but it's not even guaranteed they get back to the finals. So if they don't win something in the next 2 years with Kyrie and AD and Clay and whoever else, that's an even worse move on their end. Like, this is potentially the worst move by a franchise in NBA history. It's going to be up there if they don't win something. They have to win in the next year or two, because they basically just gave away one of the biggest, not only like on the court gems, but like marketing gems for this league in terms of how global it's going. Luka is next up in terms of those kind of, he's super likable around the league, even not just in Dallas. And giving him to the number one marketable franchise, I know Adam Silver is, well, I was about to say something crazy. Let's just say the dude's frothing at the mouth. I'll just put it like that. I know this dude is gassed. He was like, LeBron's going in 2 years. What are we going to do? The league's done for. No one cares about Katie and Steph anymore. And all of a sudden, he brings in Luka to LA, match made in heaven. The jersey sales, the marketing, everything going to the roof. I have so much more to say, but I'll let y'all talk about this too. But this is just crazy.
It does seem, again, from like a casual perspective, I agree. Like, it seems very bizarre from the Mavs end of like, this was a star player you had who even like casuals like know of and like hear about, and just giving him to one of the biggest franchises for a player. How old is Anthony Davis? How old is he? Do we know?
I believe 32.
Yeah, like at 32, like you're still good, but it's like you're also, that's a mature age for your career, is it not?
It's very. That's like, okay, it looks like he's turning 32 in March, but let's say 32 for the sake of it. That's like approaching the end of your prime.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So this seems like in soccer when those Saudi teams like try to get like 40-year-old like amazing players like Ronaldo to come over, and it's like it's not like they're going to be that effective anymore or for that long. So yeah, it's strange to me in that regard. Great for the Lakers though. 100% great for the Lakers.
Yeah, it's wild. And I was trying to, now that you bring up soccer, like I was trying to all day, once I knew we were recording this, trying to come up with the comparison, and there's almost nothing like it in soccer.
Yeah. There is for one way, but not in giving a player like Luka.
Yeah, because just because the sports, like, because one player can make so much more of a difference in basketball than soccer. So even if like you give up something of this level in soccer, it's not necessarily gonna have, like, it can still have a great impact, but like just out of percentages, like 1 out of 5 versus 1 out of 11, it's not gonna have as much of an impact in theory. So something like this, like I was thinking like maybe giving up like Van Dijk for Mbappe or something, or like maybe KDB, who's like injury prone but really good, but toward the end of his prime, for like a Vinny or something like that. Like, those are like the closest I can come up with. But even, or maybe I saw people saying online this is like giving up, like Barca giving up Neymar for 40 million instead of 200 million, which is like crazy undervalued, like something like that.
Or giving Lamine
for for some stupid low price. Like,
yeah,
just you almost never see something like this.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, it's just wild to me because I know for a fact there is a better market for Luka out there. Like Luka, I think, you guys hit the nail on the head. He's a superstar and he's young. He's gonna be 26 at the end of this month, so he is, like Dre said, on his way to being one of, if not the best player in the league for the next 10 years. So to see him go for a pick, AD, and Max Christie, who I want to touch on this. Like Max Christie, for those who may not know, is super young. He's, I believe, 22 years old, so he's a young kid. He's 21. He's been hooping, made his way into the starting rotation for the Lakers in a season where they're still trying to figure stuff out. And so to see a young prospect go out that I thought LA was going to be so high on and was going to build on in the future, just have him go along with AD, who brought you a championship, along with a very valuable, we'll see how valuable that pick is, but right now, as of right now, the direction in which the Lakers franchise seemed to have been headed in prior to the trade, that first round pick in 2029 seems super, super valuable. So the Lakers also gave up a ton. Like, let's be clear, like, I want to make sure that's clear. Luka, great player. I think he still was received, was bought into the Lakers. That is definitely a bargain. But AD, Max Christie, and what may or may not be a very valuable first round pick, that's worth mentioning. But I will say, like Dre said, this is a very short-term move by the Mavericks. I honestly am not mad at it, man. Like, you see how literally at the time of this recording, there's also news of the De'Aaron Fox trade to San Antonio. So De'Aaron Fox is on his way to team up with Wemby. And so that San Antonio team, looks like it's going to be here to stay. And it's going to be a competitive team, however you want to put it, over the next few years. So, I see the fear in, like, hey, like, we have a young stud, Wemby, taking over. Jokic is still in the Western Conference. I know the Nuggets aren't doing too hot right now, but I think, they're a big trade away from being right back into the conversation. The Thunder is super deep, but they're also very young and inexperienced. So I see the logic and, like, hey, let's go all in right now. Let's get AD. Let's pair him with Kyrie. We have a deep team. You have a young you receive a young talent back with Christie and a pick, just in case. We'll hold on to that as well. So I see the logic with the Mavericks. I don't want to categorize this as a bad trade with them, but I do want to be clear. Like, the more I thought about this, the more I thought back, because I think we're all thinking, like, when was the last time we saw a trade of this caliber get pulled off? Or is this the most surprising trade in NBA history? It definitely is within my lifetime. Only thing I had to compare it to was that Paul George Kawhi move to the Clippers back in, 2019, and that was also late at night. That was at like 2 a.m. But the difference is that, we don't have to get into it too crazy, but there were murmurs of Kawhi wanting to be in LA. It was very clear he wanted to be on the Clippers, so that wasn't too much of a surprise. The fact that this just came out of nowhere and that this came in the way it did, just AD hadn't known about it, Luka wasn't notified about it, LeBron wasn't notified, JJ Redick was notified at the same time as Anthony Davis was. Like, everything about this just screams soap opera. But what I feel like I just went on a tangent, but what I wanted to get to is that the reason why I compare it to that Clippers trade is because you look back in hindsight to what the Clippers received and what they gave up. OKC is on a tear. Like, OKC is on their way potentially being a dynasty. They have Chet Holmgren, they have SGA, they have so much talent, and I think they clearly won that trade in hindsight. With the Mavericks, if they don't win, like Dre said, this is going to be such an embarrassing move on their part. But in my head, I also see it as like, hey, we can contend for a few more years. Let's go all in right now. So I'm not really mad at that.
I'm mad at it. I do see where you're coming from. I do actually think, like, it isn't favorable from the sense that, like, they were in the finals last year. They see a window. They're trying to strike. But for me, that's like, it's just not worth it. If you you can't guarantee. The West is so volatile, and you getting to the finals last year with Luka obviously as your number one guy. Now you're getting rid of that. You're bringing in, for me, if AD was like a guaranteed, for sure he's going to be healthy throughout the rest of the season and into the playoffs, it makes more sense. But you already have Kyrie, who isn't necessarily the most durable player out there. You bring in AD, who was nicknamed Street Clothes because this dude is always showing up in whatever drip he could find because he could barely play. And you're getting rid of Luka. Obviously, the rumors or whatever is that the Mavericks weren't happy with Luka's conditioning, and they're the one who approached LA. But to me, that makes it even worse. I think if Luka wants crazy, like I think if Luka wants out, it's different. Then you're like, okay, what can we get back? Getting back AD, Christie, a first round pick. We got something for giving up our franchise player. Okay, we made the best out of a terrible situation. But you guys saying, Luka, we're not really happy with where this is going. If this is true, I don't remember if this is confirmed or not. But if we're not happy with where this is going, we're gonna get rid of Luka. Let's approach the biggest and most successful franchise in the history of the league. You could say Celtics, whatever. I'm talking about the modern NBA before it was just farmers. The Lakers. We're gonna approach them and give them the next big superstar. Well, already a superstar, but like as all these other superstars are aging out, potential number one superstar in the league to the Lakers, who are also in the Western Conference, giving it to them. Obviously, they're not competing over the next 2 years necessarily, but for me, you can work on a player who has bad conditioning. He's 25, turning 26. Like, that's on your franchise if you can't get Luka into the shape you want him to be in. You guys getting rid of him for AD, who you can't control his injuries. That's like, for me, that's not the best trade to happen. And I understand where you're coming from with the SGA and like general Thunder comparison. I have been hearing about that too. And I think that obviously as a Clippers fan, I'm tight. Obviously SGA went on to be what he is now. And he had potential when we had him too. But this is like, if SGA is the player he is now, if we had that then, and then giving that up for an injury-prone Paul George, they're doing that with, they have current SGA. We had like a fledgling SGA who maybe turned into this, maybe didn't. There was no guarantee. And even then, I'd say we lost a trade. But they have current level SGA, potentially even better, giving them up for, let's say, Paul George. AD's better than Paul George, but like still injury-prone. Potentially even more injury-prone than Paul George. And bringing him in, I just think it's this has the potential. Obviously, if they win something, then we're all like, okay, whatever, they won. But even if they get one ring, like, is that? I'm sure they'll say it is. I'm sure they'll be like, okay, this is the right move. But then if you go 5 years down the line and the Lakers build up around Luka, and then the Lakers are winning 2-3 rings with Luka as the best player in the league, obviously this is all hypothetical. But this has the potential to go down. We just have to see it play out. But as one of the worst trades ever, in my opinion.
I hear you. I like what you said about AD can't control his injuries. You can control Luka's conditioning. So I think that's super valid. And while we're on the topic of conditioning, you know, the headline came out that like Luka was pushing 270, 270 pounds. And that's
eating the table.
Looking up with Zion, bro.
Yeah. I'm glad you said Zion, because honestly, I get all the jokes. It's funny. We can laugh at it. Anyone who is actually comparing Luka to Zion, like I've seen people legitimately mad at Luka for the weight gain. This is why I stay away from a lot of NBA media. This is why I stay away from a lot of Twitter when I can. That Twitter is my news source, but just staying out of the threads and the opinions and just the discourse, because people like to make those connections. And whoever's comparing Zion to Luka, man, I hope you stop talking basketball as soon as possible. I hope something happens to your cell service or whatever, man. Like, cause there's nothing that like gets me angry more than like people who just wanna hate on a player for no reason. And Luka, I think, deserves all the respect he has gotten. Yes, the conditioning is insane. Also, by the way, Dre, this isn't a jab at you. This isn't a jab at Alexi. I know you guys all mean it in good fun, and I don't think you guys are. You mentioned it, right? Like, Luka took him to a chip, but there's people who legitimately are angry at the whole conditioning situation, and I understand that it's a problem and it's a concern. It's not a good look, but to compare it to Zion, that's crazy. So that's one thing I want to get out of the way. I'm not sure if y'all have any comments on just that part.
Yeah. With that, yeah. For me, Luka 270, 720, a ton. I don't care, bro. Luka was in the finals last year.
Keep going.
I'll take Luka, whatever form of Luka's already not the most athletic player in the league. Like, we're not expecting Luka to become some chiseled god who's out here hitting like a 50-inch vertical all of a sudden. Like, that's not even his game. So to me, like, the conditioning, obviously you want your player to get in as good a conditioning as possible, because then also bad conditioning could lead to injuries. But for me, that's not a valid reason to get rid of Luka. If there's some other behind the scenes stuff that we're not hearing about, that's different. But for the franchise to say, we're not feeling the conditioning, let's get him out of here, that's got to be sabotage to me.
I mean, the whole thing, though, even if there is some behind the scenes stuff going on, I still find it weird that, I mean, the players weren't aware of this. I mean, is that a norm for these trades? Like,
not at all.
for them to learn like the same day the rest of the world does at the same time?
Yeah, that's crazy. That is wild. And yeah, before I get to Lexi's comment, Dre, what you said is like, yes, I agree with that as well. People act like Shaq didn't dominate the league. Shaq was not the most in shape player,
Exactly.
period. You know, there's record that him and Kobe beefed over that. So, but they still brought chips to the city. So I don't understand the hate. I understand it's a concern. I think the concern was also he was becoming that Supermax extension was coming up, and it just looks like the Mavericks just didn't. The way I see it, they just didn't think he was worth the Supermax given the conditioning issues. So I don't know. I obviously think that Luka deserved to have stayed on the Mavericks, but it's not what I think. At the end of the day, I thought it was also just such a storybook, you know, like kind of script. You had Dirk do his time in Dallas. He was a lifelong Maverick from Europe. You know, one of the first probably the first real European superstar. And towards the end of his tenure, towards the end of his career, you get the next big European star. I thought that was so, you know, the script was so, that would be so fire, you know, to have seen him play the whole career out. And he has spoken out and said he thought he was going to be a Maverick his entire career. So, you know, crazy to see it turn out the way it did. But Alexi, in regards to your comment, yes, that the fact that he had no knowledge, the fact that AD had no knowledge is crazy. And I think, yes, we're living in an age, and that's actually something I wanted to talk about. We're living in an age where the players have all the power. We're obviously seeing the whole Jimmy Butler situation play out right now. And I think if you got to be Jimmy right now, you got to be upset because you have been very public about your frustration with the franchise. And since then, they have not moved a bit. And Luka has moved. AD has moved. De'Aaron Fox has moved. Zach LaVine has moved. A lot of, you know, you got players who were in trade rumors, others who weren't in trade rumors who have been moved. So I just think that within itself is funny. But I just think it's owners at the end of the day, just, or maybe not owners, GMs, kind of just like bucking up and saying like, yo, we are the ones in charge. You know, the players have had too much power. maybe they're not. I'm not saying they're saying this straight up, but
Mhm.
the GMs are being GMs. They're the ones that are pulling all the strings, calling the shots. You see Tim McMahon is soon, who's part of the administration within the Mavericks, part of the front office, speak out and say, "Hey, we were not comfortable with the conditioning. We were concerned about the conditioning. We think that we need a defensive-minded superstar in AD, and that's why they made that move." So you see him coming out and standing on stand on 10 toes down, saying like, "This is what we were doing, and this is why we did it." Yeah, Luka's great. He didn't play any defense, so that's why we're moving on from him. Which I think, like, people can be mad at it all they want. I think that's kind of gangster, man. Like, you're standing on what you just did. You got the whole world mad at you. You got the whole media confused, the fan bases crucifying you, just publicly, just coming at you crazy, and you're gonna be like, yeah, like, this is why we did it. This is what we did, and we thought this was the best move. I honestly, even though I disagree with the move, I can see the logic, and I gotta respect it. So, yeah, is it harsh that Luka? This is also something I want to clarify. Is it harsh that Luka and AD were not notified and were not aware and did not even make these requests themselves? Yes, 100%. I think I never wish this on anybody. I watch a lot of player podcasts and NBA player podcasts, and they speak on just how emotional and how hard it can be to move from one city to another, and how this can affect your mental health. So by no means am I saying like, hey, like, this is what we need to do, this is what needs to happen. But there's a lot of people out there who are complaining about the ratings, who are complaining about the NBA. One of the biggest concerns has been the power that players have. And so to see something like this happen, where you got a top 5 player just get moved like that overnight, crazy. And I think it's the reason why it's entertaining, the reason why we're so drawn to it, is because we haven't seen it. So I can't be mad at that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm not upset with them standing on business. I think once you make that decision, you should stand on it and say this is, because you're basically staking. If you're the person who decides we're moving Luka Doncic at 25 years old, you're staking your career as a general manager on this move. Because if this doesn't work out, you're done. Like, in my opinion, you're done for. So you got to come out and stand on it. There's no coming back from that. Like, you have to come out and say, okay, this is what we're doing. I believe in this move. And you just got to hope within the next year, 2 years, maybe 3 years, but that's pushing it with Kyrie's age, AD's age. That's something that you win something. Because if you don't, you're done for. I can't see another. And the Mavericks generally are well-run organizations, but I can't see someone backing someone who made a move like this. It's just too much of a gamble, I think, for this league to give up, because one player can make so much of a difference in a game, to give up a top 5 player for a top 10 player. Obviously, one is a defensive-minded superstar, like you said, and one isn't. But also, if that's your goal to build this team, and I think maybe 5 years ago, putting Kyrie and AD together, that's a dream, like, little and big matchup. Like, that's actually a really cool matchup. Maybe 5 years ago. Even today, obviously, they're not washed or anything. They're still in their, like, toward the end of their primes. But if that's your goal, to have a setup like that, you could have had Luka and AD. I'm not saying they would have traded Kyrie for AD, but I'm saying you brought Kyrie to the Mavs. Even when that happened, everyone was saying, I'm not sure this is the best, like, matchup basketball-wise. You proved us wrong. You got to the finals, and then now you're saying, Luka, we're not really, that's not really working out. Let's bring in AD. It just, to me, it's a whole roundabout way of getting rid of the best out of those 3 players, that's the part that doesn't make sense to me. If this was your goal to have a more defensive-minded superstar, because Kyrie tries, but, like, he isn't necessarily the best defender either. Obviously, it's a different mindset. Like, at least he's trying. Luka doesn't even really put in that much effort, in my opinion. But if this was your goal, then you should have been trying to bring someone in to play with Luka as a defensive-minded superstar to pair up with him. But now out of the three of those players, Luka right now is the best and is the youngest by at least 7 years, almost 8 years. Like that, to me, that's where you fumbled the puzzle there.
Yeah, I get you. I get you with that. You know, you look around, and if you had told me literally Friday night, hey, Mavericks are about to make a blockbuster trade, they're trading a superstar, who are they getting rid of? I would, with 100% confidence, would have told you, oh, Kyrie's leaving. They're moving Kyrie. So yes, to see Luka be the one to get moved is definitely, you know, I did not expect it. But in that same breath, man, Mavericks right now are a 9 seed, right? They're right there. They're right there. So they're not too. I know saying the 9 seed sounds like they're out of contention. They're within striking distance of the 4 and 5 seed. You know, they're just 4.5 games behind the 4 seed, the Nuggets. They're right there. With this team, I think, is definitely now in the contention conversation, no question, because you got Kyrie, you got AD, you got Clay, you got Christie, you got Gafford, Lively. Like there's you have such crazy depth where I'm like, man, like this team is scary. I thought the Thunder was deep. I think this team is scary, and I'm glad as a Knicks fan that I don't have to run into, you know, we don't have to run into this team unless, fingers crossed, we make it to the finals, right? Like that's what I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, man, like I think they can knock off an inexperienced Thunder. I think they can knock off the Cavs, and I think you put, you know, say we have a rematch, Mavs Celtics in the finals. Listen, AD may give the Celtics a run for their money and push them over the top and get them that chip. So maybe it's recency bias, but I'm not counting out. Like I don't want to fully say these are the championship favorites, but I think it's a toss up between them and the Celtics. So, like I said, is it a head scratcher? A little bit, but I'm seeing the vision, and I think we can see it materialize as early as this season. But only time will tell. Only time will tell. And the other thing I wanted to get to too within this trade, and you know, I'm gonna wrap this up soon. We've been talking about it for a minute, but listen, man, I think you mentioned too. We were talking about the Clippers and the Thunder trade, right? In hindsight, right? If we look at that trade and we see how disastrous it's been, right? That's one example, right? Another example is you just look at the Lakers, right? You look at LeBron's tenure. I know you mentioned the Mickey Mouse ring. For the record, I don't consider it a Mickey Mouse ring, but I get I'm not mad at anyone for bringing up that narrative. Listen, I'm not gonna act like I'm the biggest LeBron fan because I'm not. So if people look back into LeBron's tenure with the Lakers, he's going out sad, man. He's playing well, but he has been playing with trash teams. So people may look at that one chip and still say, hey, that tenure was a little bit underwhelming. So I completely understand how someone can say one chip for the Mavs with this trade, not enough. So I understand it. We're seeing it right now with LeBron in LA, but you know, I like I said, man, only time will tell. It's scary. It's a scary time, but at the same time, it's exciting, man. Who doesn't love a good shakeup? But you know, that's all I got to say on that. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I definitely agree about. I think LeBron's time with the Lakers has been underwhelming. We could have a whole topic on that too another day. But I'll just leave us with this as before we move on to the next topic. Let's just say Luka, the Mavs think, okay, we can make it work with him. We send him to the Lakers. LeBron retires 2 years, I'm sure. But even before then, now there's a reason why the best franchises in sports usually are the way they are, is because they're usually in these big markets. Obviously, you could have, say, Celtics are an anomaly in that sense, but even the New England market has its own value in every sport. But now Luka in LA, not only is Adam Silver frothing at the mouth, but other superstars might be frothing at the mouth to go play with Luka now. Maybe they wanted to play with Luka before, but they're like, Dallas, like, okay, that's cool. Although in Texas, you get way more of your money than you would in California. But I think living in LA, that's just a big plus for a lot of these guys. And we could see players who may want to play with Luka, but they're like, Dallas wasn't the spot. They're like, okay, LA is the spot. And we could see in 5 years a stacked Lakers team that we wouldn't have seen in Dallas. And then all of a sudden, Dallas was like, damn, Luka wasn't the problem. We were the problem. And the breaks. But we'll see. Only time will tell, like you said.
Yeah, which would be sad, man. I'm like I said, man. Knicks. I don't want to bring every conversation back to the Knicks, but because we are currently in contention and we're seeing the way things are unfolding, I love the team we have right now. But listen, man, I wouldn't be mad now that the big stars want to, are going. You have a Luka going to in LA, man. I'd be lying if I said, man, I wouldn't want a Giannis to make his way to New York. But just insert any other superstar name. But that's a whole different conversation. I'm just picking on Giannis because I always been skeptical about the Bucks and how they're gonna turn out. But that's again another topic for another day. But yeah, man, it's scary times we're living in, but definitely new beginnings. We'll have to wait and see, and we'll see how the season plays out, and maybe we revisit this in the future, and we'll have different thoughts. But as of right now, that's what we're thinking. Cool. All right, next NBA topic I wanted to get to the All-Star Game selections. So last week we spoke on the starters. This week we're going to be talking about the reserves. Very quickly, the Eastern Conference reserves: Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Damian Lillard, Tyler Hero. And then in the West, you got Anthony Edwards, Anthony Davis, James Harden, Jaren Jackson Jr., Alperen Sengun, Jalen Williams, and Victor Wembanyama. So lots of the names that we had discussed and kind of thrown around last week ended up being named to the team. So, like we were saying last week, it's not like any of these players will have the reserve portion in their accolades. Jaylen Brown is an all-star the same way Donovan Mitchell is an all-star. Wemby is going to be labeled an all-star the same way Nikola Jokic is labeled an all-star. But with that being said, there were some snubs. So any reactions? Are we satisfied with this list? What are y'all thinking?
Hey, you got this, Trey. You got this.
Okay, cool.
That's all I was gonna say.
No, fair. I think the main one I've been seeing is Sabonis. And I know when we talked about the starters, you mentioned him as a potential even starting snub. Obviously, you didn't think he should have actually gotten it, but I think we were pretty confident that he would make it anyway. I think that was like when we were talking about a lot of those snubs, was like, okay, even if they don't make the starting team, they'll probably still be a reserve anyway, and it won't be a big difference. But people like Sabonis, and then in the East, I'm not seeing LaMelo, which is interesting. Those are probably the two names that immediately stand out to me, but I'm sure you'll have a few more.
100%. LaMelo Ball is definitely the one that stood out the most. I'm very surprised by that. He was number one in fan votes, and that's the first time that a player who has been first in fan votes has not made the team. So a little bit of a head scratcher there. He was also voted number 3. He had the third most votes in Eastern Conference guards by the players. So the fans and the players were a fan or wanted LaMelo in the All-Star game. Looks like the media came down to the media and they didn't want him in there. So, and LaMelo's been having a killer season, man. But other snubs, yes, Sabonis, who's been shooting 61 from the field, 61%. So very efficient, and 15 rebounds. Like he's been killing, man. He's been killing. So yes, to see him not there, kind of crazy, kind of sad. Then there's Trae Young, who is first in assists, leads the league in assists. That's a bit of a head scratcher as well. Then you got Norman Powell from the Clippers, another snub. And yeah, those are the ones I'll name. But I will say, man, I think the biggest one I'm angered by is the LaMelo snub. He's been playing so well. And last time we spoke on, yes, the selection comes down to a number of things. It comes down to your stats, but it also comes down to your record and, you know, just a lot of different factors. We spoke on maybe your chips, your reputation, your name holds some weight. So I think that actually played out in this selection. So you have someone like Tyler Hero, who on paper has done more in the league. He's made it to 2 NBA finals, but he is not having as good of a season statistically as LaMelo. So I love Tyler Hero, huge fan of his game. Love to see him ball out. I have nothing bad to say on Tyler, but LaMelo needs to be there, man. So I was a little like thrown off by that. Evan Mobley, you already have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell make the team. So a third member of the Cavaliers make the team. I understand they're the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They had a crazy good start to the season. I went to 1 Knicks game this season so far, and I saw Darius Garland hoop and ball out and, you know, just tear it up in the Garden. So, you know, I know the Cavs have been on a tear, but we really need 3 players from the Cavs on this All-Star team. I'm frustrated by that. And then Siakam, you know, I respect Siakam. I like his game. But listen, man, I think, you know, because it's reserves, it's not a statistical. It's not a position. A conversation about what position, you know, what other forward needs to take their spot. Trae Young and LaMelo, man. I think those are 2 names. And as a Knicks fan, I'm supposed to hate Trae, but I can say with confidence Trae belongs on that team. So I'm frustrated by that for sure. But you know, those are just my immediate reactions. I don't know if y'all have anything else to say.
Yeah, I know we won't spend too much time on this one because I know we went crazy on the bombshell trade, but this is where, for me, I kind of hinted at this last week with the starter conversation, where All-Star to me should be judged differently than something like an MVP, where like you have, like you laid out, fan vote, player vote, LaMelo should be there, media come in, and I'm assuming media are taking seeding record very heavily into account for LaMelo to not be here and for there to be 3 Cavs players. And for me, just because your team, and I'm not saying Evan Mobley's some scrub that's not contributing. Obviously, he's a part of them being so high in the stands as well. But just because your team is the best team in the league, say for example, it doesn't mean, in my opinion, that you should be an all-star because you're a heavily contributing member to that team over someone who is clearly outplaying you on an individual basis, but his team is way further down in the stands. I think that's where all-stars should come in, and we should be rewarding players, especially because it's a mid-season event. We should be rewarding players who aren't going to be in the conversations for anything come end of season. I think that's where you should make that distinction. Not having someone like LaMelo, because what more can he really do if he's playing out of his mind and his team is still wherever they are in the standings, to become an all-star? At that point, you're just like, okay, well, you just got to get on a good team, bro. And that should be the conversation for MVP, for winning rings, for things like that. For all-star, like, I just think that's a bit harsh. And I don't think seeding and record should be super heavily weighted into all-star specifically. I think for MVP, that's where that conversation really should come in. And for all NBA even. But for All Star, I just don't see it.
100%. And to kind of piggyback off of my like Tyler Hero comment, Tyler Hero's averaging 24.1 points per game in comparison to LaMelo's 28.2. There's 4.1 of a difference right there in LaMelo's favor. Hero does have 0.3 more rebounds per game. He has 5.6 this season. He's averaging 5.4 assists per game in comparison to LaMelo's 7.3. And then LaMelo's averaging 1.4 steals per game in comparison to Hero's 0.7 steals per game. So double. So very concerning. I don't know if concerning is the right word, but we see what's happening, you know. I'm thinking back to that meme. I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but there's Boogie Cousins, and he's like, I hope everyone right now can tell what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous.
It's obvious what's being done out here. It's on a nightly basis. I hope the world can see now what's really going on out here, because it's getting ridiculous. It's really ridiculous.
And LaMelo's been snubbed. Trae Young has been snubbed, so it's kind of sad to see. Those are two of the most entertaining players in the league to watch. I think you ask any of the you think of like, what are the kids looking at? What are the kids watching? I think LaMelo and Trae embody two of the most entertaining players in the league right now. So sad to see them not make the roster, but there's definitely heavy politics involved. But yeah, that's all I gotta say on it.
Yeah, I'm good on this one. I don't know if you have anything, Alexi. I assume not.
Yeah, nah, I'm clueless here. Y'all got it.
Word. All good, man. All right, man. I feel like I just had so much on my chest, man. But next order of business, the thing that I thought was gonna be our main point of conversation this week, the Royal Rumble. So, quick recap. For those who may not be as familiar, yes, this is just to give you a quick rundown of what it is. Basically, the biggest pay-per-view of the year for the WWE is WrestleMania. That is like the equivalent of like the season finale of the year. It all culminates. It's a big pay-per-view that takes place end of March, beginning of April. This year, it's beginning of April. And this Royal Rumble basically is centered around a big match, both in the men's and the women's division. So they each have their respective Royal Rumble match. And it's 30 superstars or 30 wrestlers who are competing in this elimination style match, where if you get thrown over the top rope, so it's not a traditional match. It's not you don't win by pinfall. You don't win by submission. If you're thrown over the top rope, you are eliminated. And the last person, last wrestler, last superstar standing gets a world title shot. So the main title, the biggest title in the company, you get to be the main event of WrestleMania and compete for that title. So it's a big deal. It's obviously such a good way to market your biggest pay-per-view, because you literally have a pay-per-view in preparation for your biggest pay-per-view. So people obviously, like, it's such a money grab, but like, I buy into it. There's usually very exciting returns. A lot of nostalgic returns can sometimes happen. We did see that in the women's match. Not a lot, but a couple. And yeah, it's just a fun time, man. It's the first pay-per-view of the year, so there's a lot to speak on. There's a lot to just be excited for, and people obviously make their fantasy picks with who they want to win the match, who they want to see in the main event of WrestleMania. So that's where the excitement comes from, for those who may not be as familiar with wrestling. And the other thing I did want to comment, ahead of this pay-per-view, Kai, Sinat, and Speed were in like the news, or like there was clips and just news circulating that they were going to be part of this pay-per-view, and both of them seem to have streamed during the pay-per-view. Speed actually made an appearance at the Royal Rumble. Maybe we'll get to that. But like in the actual match, by the way, that's what I mean. But yes, looks like there was a lot of excitement coming into this weekend. Yeah. Ray, I know you and I were texting about this, but immediately any thoughts, any reactions from either of you? And Alexi, I don't think you watched it, but like if there's any, I also want to hear from someone who doesn't watch wrestling, any thoughts.
No, I
Did you-
watched the highlights in
awesome.
preparation to talk about this, and I gotta say, I felt it was more entertaining than regular WWE stuff. Just I think because of the whole premise of just getting knocked out, like out of the ropes, essentially out of that area. It reminds me of like a King of the Hill almost in a way, especially when they got multiple dudes in there. So it was actually really entertaining. From the clips I saw, I thought it was cool that people I've heard of for over a decade now are still there, like John Cena. Then you got Speed getting taken out. But it was cool. It was cool. Penta was way less sus this time. Although he did. Actually, you know what? No, I take that back. When I watched the highlight with Penta, this dude literally picked up the other guy and stuffed his nuts in his face like 3 times. Like, bro, you are a wrestler. You can do so many moves. Why are you sticking his nuts in your face? That is a choice. That is not a random act. But it was cool.
That's crazy.
Am I wrong?
Listen, man, I'm glad to hear that you tuned in to the highlights. I'm glad to hear that you did have somewhat of a different reaction this time around. So, I'm glad to hear it. But just for the record, we saw there was the singles match or the tag team match, and then there was the ladder match with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens. Very quickly, just want to say DIY tag team, I'm a huge fan of them. I haven't really been super into wrestling as of late, but happy to see that they hold the titles. So good match on their part, along with their opponents. MCMG is their name. Motor City Machine Guns. Cool match. As well as the ladder match. Great match. Lots of spots. Lots of things to be excited about. And then the women's match. Sorry, guys. I just want to acknowledge the rest of the pay-per-view because I know I know Dre, you watched the main event, but I just want to give some airtime to the other portion of the match or of the pay-per-view. Charlotte Flair won the women's Royal Rumble. I know a lot of people are frustrated about that. And this is Ric Flair's daughter, for those who may not know. Ric Flair's daughter is considered the most talented female wrestler on the roster by many people, but she's also, that kind of is a double-edged sword because she is kind of like the modern day John Cena, or for those who were watching in the 2010s, the Roman Reigns, in the sense of, yes, very talented wrestler, pushed to the top, and seems to always be the default winner. So there's a lot of people who are upset by that. There was a huge pop to Alexa Bliss's return, which I thought was super cool. Alexa Bliss kind of has this Harley Quinn type of character. So I've always been a fan of Alexa, and it was nice to see her back in the ring. So super happy about that. No AJ Lee, no Becky Lynch, and I know Becky Lynch was kind of a reach, but no AJ Lee, which I'll put stress on that. No AJ Lee. I was a little upset by that, but there was a Trish Stratus, so that was a nostalgic entry. And just all around, man, as someone who grew up watching the Ruthless Aggression era of wrestling, it's good to see the sport progress. And this is without, it's not like this is the first time there's been a Royal Rumble match within the women's division, but it's a relatively new concept still. So it's always just great to see that you have a division that has the ability to perform and deliver. There were a lot of great returns, a lot of nostalgic returns. So all around, just great to see this sport continue to expand. And it was a great match. People are underwhelmed by the finale, and maybe that coincides with the men's Royal Rumble. But I personally had a ton of fun watching it. But let's get to the main event. Dre, I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think?
Yeah. Well, honestly, you distracted me because was AJ Lee rumored to come back for the women's Royal Rumble?
I think I was just me and a couple of my friends and a lot of people on Twitter were just like, "Yo, it would be so fire." I think you had mentioned too, like Punk had like mentioned her recently, and so there were clips circulating of her training, and I'm not gonna act like this is something we deserved. Obviously, I don't know how AJ Lee feels about the business, so I assume if she wanted to return, she could have and she would have. So I'm assuming that this was just like voluntarily herself, just not. Maybe she doesn't want to get back into the business, which I totally respect. But obviously, as a fan of the product, as someone who loves the nostalgic aspect of the Rumble, I thought she was returning, or I had a hope that she was going to return. And there were a lot of people who were disappointed by the fact that she didn't. So, was it rumored? Yes, it was. But I'm not going to hold it against the WWE.
Okay, fair. I just don't bait me because I'll be very excited if that were to happen. But yeah, getting onto the main event, the men's Royal Rumble, and the final the final match, I should say. I would just say, I know we'll probably talk about a lot of different parts of it, but just to set it up, going into the match, like we've talked about on the podcast previously, check out previous episodes or segments if you don't know, but I'm also returning to WWE after a long time of not watching regularly. Actually, 10 years of not watching regularly, so there's a lot of people I might not be familiar with, but I did know from watching the first Raw on Netflix that this is going to be John Cena's last hurrah, 2025. He's doing his last run, last show in all these big cities and everything, and potentially a last title run. And knowing going into this match that John was going to be in the Rumble, that John already has won 2 Rumbles and had the potential to match the record for 3 wins. And just because I want to see John Cena main event WrestleMania, I'll just set it up and saying I was very much hoping that John Cena was going to win the Rumble. And the Rumble played out. And if you know how it ended, let's just say I was a little bit disappointed that that's not exactly what happened. But I'm sure we can build our way up to that as well.
100%. Yeah, man. I wanted Cena to win as well. I think both of our inner childs really wanted to see that happen. And just for the record, Cena has won 2 Royal Rumble matches in his career. The record for most Rumble wins is 3, and it's held by Stone Cold. So I thought Cena was actually going to tie that record last night, and he didn't. So it looks like Stone Cold still holds that record. So, good for him. But yes, definitely disappointed by that. But I do want to also talk about other things that caught my eye during the match. Rey Mysterio and Penta opening the match. I did not expect that. So for the record and for those listening, my first Royal Rumble that I can remember was the 2006 Rumble. So that was when Rey Mysterio won it. Just a couple of months removed from Eddie Guerrero's passing, and I thought that was huge. He won it from the number 2 spot, went the distance, eliminated Triple H and Randy Orton to win the match, and then eventually went on to main event WrestleMania, beats Kurt Angle, who was my favorite wrestler growing up, and Randy Orton, and wins the world title. So seeing him coming out as one of the first 2 contestants, there was obviously some nostalgia there. So I was super excited just off of that alone. But then to see Penta come out, and also to see the crowd go crazy. He was in this really cool like light blue outfit, so it wasn't the little skeleton y'all were making fun of just a couple weeks back. So I was just, like I was ecstatic from the start, and they had a stare down in the ring, a little handshake. Penta did his little Cero Miedo catchphrase in front of everybody, and the crowd really liked it. Rey Mysterio followed it up with like a little 619 chant, which I thought was a little bit like, all right, you don't do that. That's not really your chant, but like, it was still cool. It was still great. I think I'm also, obviously for the Mexican culture, man, I was just happy to see that, man. It was special. But yes, Rey and Penta from the start was huge for me. Any other or like anything else that caught your eye?
Yeah, I thought Rey and Penta was cool, especially given the conversation we had about Penta. And I think generally, maybe there's like some stat I can go back and look up. I feel like WWE likes to have Rey in the first two starting a Rumble match. Like I feel like he might have the record for being in the first two more than anyone else. Cause I feel like there's a few Rumbles I can think of where Rey comes in early. But yeah, I think that was a cool transitional kind of thing. Not that Rey's leaving, but to give like the GOAT luchador of the WWE a stage with this new guy they're bringing in and trying to push, and to give him his credit. I said that maybe the crowd wasn't super familiar when he first came on the scene a few weeks ago, but the crowd was definitely like in the know with his chant and that kind of stuff. I thought that was dope as well. And I thought they did a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, Penta lasted way longer than Rey, so maybe they're trying to give him his own little push. We talked about it when we were messaging about this, but maybe a little too long because he spent a large chunk of time laying in that back right corner of the ring, just chilling. Like that was yeah, maybe they could have gotten him out a little bit earlier, but I can see they're trying to push a new guy they're bringing into the industry. So, well, not industry, but into this business. So, I'm not too mad at that. But yeah, there were a lot of guys. I know we talked about like how many people that I recognize on the first Raw from Netflix. There were a decent amount of guys on the Rumble. I was like, who is this? There were some I like knew their name, but I never really watched them wrestle. But I thought it was a good field of guys. No crazy returns, at least that I was looking forward to. I know we could talk about AJ Styles, or I know you said you were excited about, but he's not someone like he was like someone who, when I watch wrestling, everyone would always murmur about like, oh, we really wish AJ Styles was in the WWE, but that was never materialized when I was watching, and only after I stopped watching, he finally made that move. So I never actually got to watch his WWE run. I only knew of him as like, oh, he's in these other companies as like the main guy. But so that wasn't like super exciting for me. I was hoping there would be some big return. There wasn't really any other than that. But even then, I thought it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of still big wrestlers that showed up for this one.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think, well, I mentioned Trish Stratus in the women's Rumble, but there wasn't a lot of nostalgia this Rumble all around from either match. Yeah, I wanted some kind of nostalgia in this match, and there wasn't really much of it. So that's always a bummer, but hey, it was a great match all around, so there's not that much that I can just drag on. I thought this was a very impressive Rumble all around. Speaking of impressive, Braun Breaker, who I just am not super familiar with because I'm just getting back into watching wrestling. And I think every wrestler kind of has to prove themselves not like has to, but like in order for me to get on board, obviously I need to be sold on their ability. Braun Breaker definitely sold me on his ability last night. He's the son of Rick Steiner, so he is a second generation WWE superstar. So good to see him go on a tear. Like he brought the energy. It was so nice to see him just go all out. I think he speared So he there was also that little photo op, which by the way, while we're on the topic of speed, I was actually upset that there was a spot wasted on a celebrity. I am never for that. There was a couple of years back that Johnny Knoxville entered the Royal Rumble, and it was to promote a Jackass movie, I'm pretty sure. And I was, not a fan of that, not a fan of speed in this Rumble. It was funny, I understand, Akira Tozawa, who's kind of a cruiserweight, or was in the cruiserweight division when it was around in the WWE. He was making his entrance, and he's now kind of become a joke, part of Alpha Academy, who's what did Alexi call him? That stay at Homelander, or that fake Homelander guy.
Yeah.
That's who he's connected to. Just got injured got attacked on his way to the ring, and then Triple H has this moment while Speed is on stream. So I will say respect to that. That's kind of cool. While Speed is on stream, Triple H tells him hey, you're in the match. Go. And he comes out to the World Cup song, which I just was cracking up, but I was also upset. I was cracking up, but I was upset. Didn't like that. Did you have any reactions to Speed joining the Rumble?
I thought it was a bit weird how he was joining in less than a week after Kai made an appearance. I see it business wise, they're trying to grow their audience. Clearly, these streamers have so many people who follow them, so it makes sense to have them on. I just thought they was a bit close together. But it was entertaining for sure. World Cup coming out to that, I got to agree. I haven't heard that song since the World Cup, so it was a bit weird hearing that again. But I thought it was funny how he was kind of introduced and just thrown in there. Although I know he got injured, that shit looks serious, bro. That he got hit hard.
Yeah. You think he'd learned his lesson? He was in WrestleMania, in appearance at WrestleMania last year, and got RKO'd by Randy Orton. And I remember him going off later, being "Yo, that was real. That hurt." So yeah, props to him though for taking a bump. Yeah, I always respect anyone who, I want to make that clear. I'm not knocking Speed for being in the Rumble. I think anyone who, I don't know what his background is with wrestling in terms of his fandom, but I think it's every young fan's dream to one day be in the, be a wrestler, have that experience. So I will say, if that opportunity was thrown my way, best believe I would have taken it. So I'm not in any way coming at him. I'm happy for him. Obviously, it's great for his brand to see someone on stream and then kind of have that coincide with a pay-per-view with a live broadcasting. I thought, props. But as a fan, as someone, I was angry at the WWE for putting him into the match. Barry, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I personally didn't hate it. I think if that was a spot where that's potentially taking the spot of a big name in the match, then that's a different story. But I think if they were okay, no one else really adds to the story of the match, let's just do a little fun, because they do fun gimmick things here and there in the Rumble. They like that kind of thing, even with wrestlers. So I think Triple H is very forward thinking, and he obviously had Kai streaming there, had Speed streaming there. He's okay, this would be fun to do. I think, like you guys both mentioned, in terms of tapping into another audience as well, I'm not super mad at that. I think the only reason I don't have a problem with it is because he took the bump. I think it's different if Speed just comes in, eliminates, because I think even him eliminating someone is already on the line. But if he just eliminates someone and then it kind of just fizzles out. But the fact that he took a bump to the level he did, well, I guess 2 bumps to the level that he did, I think that adds to the whole, okay, you can't just come in and play around. You're gonna, obviously it's all scripted, but still he's taking the bumps. So you can't just come in and play around. You have to like take your lumps, and there's no like you're not going to cut it out as a superstar. Like not everyone's going to be Logan, who's actually competing and actually talented in this. Speed, you're not that guy. Get up out of here. In terms of like the story of it, like get up out of here. We're not playing around with you. I think that's a fun way to play on that, but also say like, okay, there's levels to this. And I think because the moment also was like super viral, as everything with Speed is. But I think it's also cool because someone like Braun Breaker, who you mentioned before, someone I'm also not super familiar with, but just from that match, and not just with Speed, but like some other spears he had, I was like, this might be the most lethal spear I've ever seen. Like his spear is crazy. Obviously, like the Speed one is like, obviously he was building up crazy momentum going rope to rope and then hitting Speed with that. But like just the ferocity of how he hits it is it was actually wild. It was like, I don't know. Like I still love Edge's spear. Obviously, maybe I'm biased about the nostalgia of that. And like just the aesthetically how he hits his. I know Edge's isn't even necessarily like the most technical or like coolest spear people have seen. Like there are other dope spears out there, but that spear, I was like, I kind of want to see this guy wrestle again. And you don't really get that moment without having a ragdoll like Speed to go in there and take that. So I think that there's something cool about it. But I can see where you're coming from.
Good point. Good point. Shades of Goldberg for sure. Obviously, Goldberg has that like build to him, and Braun Breaker is also super built, but he's not Goldberg. But yes, super athletic spear. I'm totally with you on that. So yeah, sold on him, and good point on Speed, man. True. I think every Rumble has some comedic aspect to it. Usually it comes through like someone like R-Truth. Back in the day, it was like Santino. So I understand that is an aspect of the Rumble, and I'm not, in hindsight, I know I said I'm mad at it. I still would not want them to do it again, right? But the next thing I wanted to get to was just how also stacked it was, and at the end of the day, like you said, it didn't come in the way of a big name getting into the match, entering the match. So that's a fair point. Very fair point. I think there's also lots of little, I guess you could say, potential storylines that were planted in this match. There was that whole moment with Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns. That can end up being a rivalry that ends up taking place in the future. Jacob Fatu I was very entertained by him. So to see him duke it out with Roman, super exciting to keep that bloodline storyline alive, and seems like they can go into various different directions with it. So good to see that. But all around, man, just towards the end, you had Seth Rollins, you had CM Punk, you had Roman Reigns, John Cena, Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, who you mentioned, huge fan of him, Sami Zayn. They were all in the match, and just seeing them just one by one entering the ring. At that point, you could feel a transition. There was a point where you had a lot of the mid-card wrestlers, and then towards the end, you got like the more legitimate contenders entering the match, and a lot of them having stare downs, a lot of them having these grand entrances. Roman Reigns had a pyro for his. CM Punk, I always think it's so cool when the crowd can join in and sing a theme song together. So to see them sing Cult of Personality, it never gets old. And just seeing how excited that the environment just seemed crazy. And obviously it would be a mistake to not bring up, or would be disrespectful to not bring up the fact that Jey Uso was also among those final wrestlers. So like I said, man, all around so stacked. I'm like, man, this has got to be a golden era in WWE. I know it's hard to say that as an adult because you always chase that nostalgia and what it felt like as a kid, but just seeing just the star power that was in the ring last night, I was personally blown away.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And especially because of the era we watched, a lot of those names being there it helped ground the Rumble where I'm like, a lot of those mid card guys are the newer guys that I'm not super familiar with. So then when they're bringing out the heavy hitters, and a lot of these heavy hitters, which was kind of sad to see, is that they are on the older end. So I know WWE, they have to build new stars, which is like always the tough transitional thing to do. And maybe that's why you see the ending that we see. But even the person who won it isn't the youngest, so that's I'd be curious to see where they go in the future with that as well. But even seeing, because you seeing Cena, Punk, and I'm like, these guys are like, obviously they're still performing. Cena looked kind of like he was struggling at moments. I'm not gonna lie, but obviously they're still performing at a certain level. But like you just see the gray in their hair and stuff like that. I was like, damn, like these guys are really on the older side, but they're still carrying the business on their back in ways. Obviously neither of them are the champion, but it's just. It was exciting, and it was a really nostalgic moment too to see, especially like Roman. I like Roman, but obviously I mentioned, I realized this is probably on episode 0, so maybe you guys haven't heard me talk about WWE before. But Roman I didn't get to see like his massive bloodline run. I saw more like Shield Roman and that early Roman, but so I don't have like the crazy connection with Roman that a lot of modern fans do. But for me, one of my favorite feuds ever, right before I got out of WWE, and funny enough, Punk got out of WWE, was Punk and Cena. I guess over 10 years ago now. So seeing Cena enter, Punk enter, like that was dope for me. That was like a really cool moment just to see those two in the ring together. And then as we were texting about the match, I even said at the time, oh, they have all these massive guys in here. Oh, it's kind of funny that Jay's still in there. And I remember we were texting about that. I was like, yeah, and Jay's still around too. And we were like trying to predict the winner and like who we want to win, who we think's gonna win. And I never mentioned his name as that, but I was like, oh yeah, he's still around. But I never saw that coming, which I should have, because anytime someone who in your mind you're like, this guy isn't like a realistic contender, if they're still there, like final 4, final 3, there's a reason why they're still there, because they usually get rid of people who don't, like, they solely weed out the people who aren't a part of that final story. So for him to be in the final 5, final 4, final 3, final 2, you're like, Jay's still around? Like, that's kind of weird. Like, they're sending out CM Punk, they're sending out Seth Rollins, they're sending out Drew McIntyre, like they're sending out all these massive names. And this is also part of episode 0 where we talked about how coming back to watching Raw on Netflix as the first one, Jay having this massive, and I mean massive pop coming out with Travis Scott, and the entire crowd's going crazy over his theme song. That was the first time I heard his theme song. I was like, this is a banger. Like, I was listening to it on Spotify after Raw, and I was like, this crowd connection, especially watching the video of him doing it in France even, I was like, this crowd connection is special. Like, there's a very few theme songs, entrances that I've seen have this kind of crowd connection. Like, there's people singing along. Like, Cult of Personality, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, entrance song of all time. When Punk's static hits, that's a special moment. People sing along, like you just said, with this Rumble. But, like, to get people out of their seats, moving, all hitting the same dance move, that's rare. And that's, like, really special. I didn't know it was special enough to make you a Rumble winner, but clearly there's something Hunter sees where he's like, that's something we can harness. And even in the match, like having, like, whenever he hits someone, they're hearing the yeet and all that kind of stuff, which I think is kind of cringe in its own way, but hearing the yeet and all that, like, there's clearly something they're seeing there that even I'm not seeing, because I'm not as tapped in as I used to be. But I can see the logic. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I don't know exactly what the main event match is going to look like. But I can see what Hunter is seeing a little bit anyway.
100%. I agree with you. I think it's so funny now that you mentioned yeet. It's so crazy. And I think this is why actually, let me not even say that. I think it's so cool that we are in 2025. Yeet was like a thing when Vine was around. Yeet
Exactly.
was a thing like 13 years ago, right? 13, 12, 11 years ago. That was like a thing then, right? And to see a wrestler use that as their catchphrase, and every time they throw a punch, the crowd is in unison chanting yeet. Or like anytime, just anytime he's approaching the ring, or anytime Jey Uso is the center of attention, you have people chanting yeet. Like, I don't understand it. I think there is that aspect of me being like, I have no idea how he got that over with the fans, but to see it happen is so cool to me at the same time, because what I thought the final two was gonna be, I thought the final two was gonna be Punk and Cena, right? I thought they were gonna have. I was thinking it would be so cool if they could have like a 5 to 10 minute wrestling clinic at the very end of the match. Everyone's out of the ring, just them two duking it out, and then have someone win in the end. I thought that was what was gonna happen. And in a way, we did get a little bit of a wrestling clinic, but with Jey Uso and Cena. I want to also acknowledge Logan Paul being among the last three and eliminating CM Punk. I was confused by. There was nothing that was going to convince me that he was going to win, but it's not like I knew. It's not like the Jey Uso win didn't take me by surprise, right? So I think good on Triple H for booking that, and like having Logan kind of pack that heat, draw that heat, and having him be among the last three, having him take out a favorite like Punk out. Good move. If you weren't gonna have Punk win it, at least have his elimination mean something and have him taken out by someone who you don't want the fans to like. So good on that. And man, that last, what I really want to focus on is that last portion with Jey Uso and John Cena on the apron, where they're punching, they're kind of having those punches, I always love the usual spot is like you have the baby face or the good guy punching, and every time he punches, you hear the crowd go yeah, and then the crowd, when the heel or the bad guy punches, they go boo. So it's like boo yeah, boo yeah. That's like a really cool sequence that you get occasionally in certain matches. And it's funny because in this match, you didn't get that with the final two. You got yeet, yeah, which I think is a little corny, right? But it was still cool. Like, I was like, this is still fire, because it looked like they were hanging onto the rope. There were periods where Cena was teetering off and looked like he was losing his balance, and I was holding my breath. And in the end, to see him eliminated by Jey, my heart again sank. I stood up from my seat, jaw dropped to the floor, did not expect to see him win. But yeah, like you said, he's so over with his entrance. There's a lot of people who are getting behind him. The crowd seems to have enjoyed it. By the end, you would have expected, I would have thought that after something like that, maybe the fans turn against the entire match and start booing. No, you had people getting up out of their seats, doing the dance, and turning up with Jey Uso. So yeah, there's just a lot that happened. So I want to hear your thoughts on that finale.
Yeah, I think it's tough because obviously in my heart I'm like, John's got to pull this out. Like I need it, like as much as SpongeBob needed it down there with Sandy. I needed John Cena to win this Rumble. Like I was like fiending for it. But at the same time, I think that's what's special about John as a wrestler and as a person, is that no matter and he knows all the fans were with him on this last ride. We want to see something special for this last ride. The company knows that. Everyone in that arena knew that. But we all also know that we can't have this last ride for John have it come at the expense of what the company's trying to do in terms of building stories separate from him. And if John were to win this Rumble, as amazing as it would have been, I still wanted him to have won the Rumble just for the main event spot at WrestleMania. But if you're on your way out, we all know you're on your way out. There's only so much the company should do really to cater to you in terms of like involving you in the main stories, because once you're gone, they have to pick up the pieces from that. So I think, and John knows that, and I think reason why to me John is the GOAT. And I think it's a 1A, 1B, him, Stone Cold, had that conversation. But that's not Stone Cold's probably still the GOAT. But anyway, the reason why John is 1A, 1B GOAT conversation, because for the business, there's no one better for the business than John. Because John knows himself. As cool as it would be for him to win that Rumble, it's important to put Jey over in that moment. And I think that's what makes John so special in a way. And that's what made that moment so special, especially on the apron. We were like, we want John, but Jey will be sick too. But John, this is the last ride, but Jay's next up. And the fans are like, either way this goes, this could be dope. And it's really interesting having two faces battle it out as the last in the Rumble, because really, obviously you could say, okay, the fans get what they want either way, but you do really risk dividing your fan base in that moment. And it was a massive risk to go with Jey. I think the last sequence built up to that beautifully. I think the actual elimination, like the AA back over the rope and he just pushes him off, like that one wasn't too special to me. But I guess they have to, in a way, it still is Super Cena in a way, so they still have to like not let him go out in some crazy way. Like it's still a little like sneaky kind of bam out of there real quick. And then like, but I think in a way it has to be quick, just so it's really hard to process it. Like that shot they have of Cena with Jey in the background, it's like amazing cinematography. Like that's something I think Hunter has been really special with in terms of directing these shows. But yeah, that moment was super dope, and now it's up to them to nail this road to WrestleMania.
Yes, 1000%. I hear you on that final shot where John has that like shocked and like disappointed look on his face. I think people, like, to the outsider, it may look like cringy, like, you know, but I thought, like you said, cinematography, people have been throwing around the term cinema. That I thought was cinema. Like you have someone who clearly had high stakes. There were high stakes for him to win the match, and you see him lose and you see the disappointment in his face, and I just thought that was crazy sick. Like just seeing the way it ended, and then he goes back into the ring towards the end. And I was even holding my breath a little bit. I was like, is he gonna like turn heel? Is he gonna like low blow Jey Uso? Like, is something about to happen right now? Didn't end up happening. He just shakes his hand and like gives him the congrats, which is in very typical Cena. But I that definitely blew me away. And while we're on the topic of best for business, I don't know if you tuned in for the post-match like press conference. I wasn't planning on doing it, but then I saw then I had a friend text me. He was like, yo, watch it. And if y'all have time, I would suggest that y'all look it up. It's like 3 minutes long. And he goes on this, like, he's like, no questions. I just want to say, goes on this 3-minute rant on why it's best for business for him to win the 17th title, for him to break the record. So I think they're very clearly just going to drag this story on. So I'm excited to see how it plays out over the next year. And, you know, wasn't the winner I expected, wasn't the winner I wanted, but it looks like they're really trying to build this story up. So I can't be mad at that. Alexi, I know you I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree with the point of, like, you know, albeit I only watched the highlights and don't know that much, but I got to agree where cinematography wise, seeing Cena at the end, just his reaction to losing was probably the most like interesting part of that. I mean, I felt really invested in that moment of like, damn, like he actually feels this way. Like he's really like portraying these characters' feelings like so well. I mean, dude is a great actor and other things as well, but obviously if his roots in WWE,
Like it felt very personal in that moment. And yeah, that's all I had to say.
No, I love that.
Yeah, fair. I 100% agree. Especially, seeing John. I recently watched. I was very late to it, but I recently finally got around to Peacemaker.
I still gotta watch it.
Yeah, but he impressed me in that. And obviously, like you said, that's from years of being in this industry. But that's very interesting. What you said, Eric, as well about his post show press conference. I definitely want to go check that out because I think it is important to build to the 17th title correctly. And in a way, Cena winning the Rumble is the easy way out. That's just like, let's give him the Rumble, main event WrestleMania, Cena wins the title. That's the easy story, and that would have been great in its own way. But now that Cena has come this close to winning the Rumble, loses it as the final two, and now he has to build his way to that title in another way. When he finally does get there, that's going to be even more satisfying. And I think he knows that. I think Hunter knows that, and I think obviously the industry knows that as a whole. So now the question is just going to be how. Because I don't even think it's an if. I think John has to win that 17th title. So the question is going to be how are we going to get there. And I think that's something now I'm going to follow along because I want to see that as well.
100%. It's how you sell tickets. And but the beautiful thing is too, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, every time, and like I said, maybe I'm feeding into it, but there's that doubt that creeps in. It's hard for you to see this and be like, man, like there is a chance that they may just not give it to him because it's his, like you don't want him to win it in, let's say, October and November and then have him just hold the title for a month or two. Like there has to be some kind of length to it. So when to the run, so when you don't give him the Rumble victory, you're wondering like, man, like there is a chance that he may just not win this title, but that's obviously what's gonna have you tuning back into it. So, like I said, happy to carry along and follow along that storyline. They're doing great so far. I'm invested, so they're doing their job. But yeah. Any other thoughts? I know that was also a long-winded conversation, but any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm good on this one. I think it was obviously I didn't watch the entire pay-per-view, but at least the Rumble match, I think it was entertaining and a good, even if disappointing in its own way, it was also a great ending in its own way as well. So I'm excited to follow along the road to WrestleMania. I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But yeah, that's another super lengthy topic, and I know we got another one, so I'm sure I'm happy to transition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think all we got left now is shifting gears to football, soccer. Marcus Rashford, man. It's time. It is officially time. He is transferred to Aston Villa. There were a lot of rumors of him initially possibly going to AC Milan. Barca also had interest, but we all know they don't got money. And here he has now ended up at Aston Villa after a call of Unai Emery. And he's going to be playing Champions League football. So he's got that above us United fans. It's a big deal. He's being loaned out, but there is an option to buy for, I believe, about £40 million at the end of the season, which I feel like they're probably going to take. I don't see how Rashford comes back to Manchester in the state he's been and how the relationship with Ruben Amorim has been. So curious what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely finesse. I'm not gonna lie. Like, to me anyway, Rashford, I want a new challenge. Like, I think,
Yeah.
to me, like, that should have been a step down in theory, or at least a step across to another league.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he's staying in the Prem and he's going not even to a rival, because at this point you can't even consider them on the same level. He's stepping up to Aston Villa, who are, like you said, playing Champions League football who are battling to get in these top 6, top 5, top 4, whatever it's going to be. Like, that's wild to me. And Villa also, I think they also brought in Asensio recently as well. And they look like they're trying to make a really big push here. And Rashford has the potential to be a part of a really strong squad here. I don't think they're actually going to win the Champions League or anything, but still, that's wild. I think he's really fun. I thought he was going abroad for sure.
But that's the key word there, is potential. And that's the thing people have associated with Rashford his entire career. The potential he had, he definitely followed through in some moments. And more recently, he has not. I think Aston Villa, I mean, with the state of things now, with him supposedly not training hard enough, not giving his maximum effort, I think it's pretty interesting a coach like Unai Emery is willing to take that chance on him, knowing these things. And knowing also previous United managers have had their issues with Rashford and his training and his effort. There's that infamous clip of him on the field literally just jogging like 2 feet away from a defender with the ball and not pressing him at all. So I truly like am kind of bewildered. Like, it is a step up, but I don't know how long that's gonna last. Or maybe he literally just needs the reset of like a new team, new location, and he'll be back to quote unquote normal in no time.
My question to y'all is, do you actually think he's happy to stay in the Prem? Because I've also read reports.
You don't look happy.
Yeah, right. But I'm like, there's also reports that he's not, he's not moving. He's just gonna commute to Aston Villa, but he's not gonna like move his residence. So he's gonna stay in the same place. Do y'all think that plays a factor in how satisfied he is with the move, especially when there was such buzz about him changing leagues and joining Barca?
I think I don't know how much a part that plays. I think the biggest thing to me is just in the press images that came out today. Like, I've seen that dude smile before, and the smiles he's showing in these photos do not look at all genuine or satisfied with this result. And I think he kind of reaped what he sowed in that when he put out that PR interview of I'm looking for a new challenge, he expected a lot of big clubs to come up and rush to sign him. Clearly, that didn't happen. Not many clubs did. And even Barca considering him, I don't even know why they considered him, because they've had their own problems. They only just had Olmo registered with La Liga. I don't know what they think, how they think they're going to get Rashford signed and approved to play and all that. And even if he'd be able to contribute to their team. But that's besides the point. I think I don't think he's going to stay at Aston Villa long term, personally. I don't see it. I just think he needs a bigger change than the Prem, going to another Prem team.
For sure. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think maybe I didn't know about that. Like the housing thing, and maybe that's like a subconscious, like you said, Alexi, not saying they're long term type of situation. Like maybe he knows, or maybe he's hoping subconsciously, okay, I still go there for the rest of the season, I commute, and then maybe in the summer, if Villa don't buy me, maybe someone else will come in, and I go somewhere else after that. So then if I'm going abroad anyway, or some other team, there's no point moving for the back half of the season just to move again. If that's the thought process, I can see that for sure. But if he does end up staying in Villa long term, then it is kind of weird. But yeah, I guess it is only a loan, so there's only so much you can predict that will happen. It's up to him. There's no more excuses for him. It's up to him. He has to perform this back half of the season if he wants a big move. Whether it's Villa paying 40 mil for him, the 40 mil could prove to be.
It could be a deal.
Yeah,
it could be a deal.
Like if this turns into like the potential, like we say, quote unquote potential with Rashford, 40 mil could be a bargain, or if it's more of what we've been seeing, that can be an overpayment. So, and maybe Villa just won't pay it. We never know. But
Yeah.
it's up to him now. There's no more excuses. He has to go perform.
Yeah. I
Interesting.
actually, like, it's funny that 40 mil number. Like, if you told me 4 years ago, like, we'd potentially be selling him for that low, I would have said you're lying. I also would have thought you're lying if you said we're in damn near 15th or whatever we're in right now in the table. but it's just the fall off is crazy. It's sad. I don't hold anything personally against him. Like, I wish him the best, but it's sad because, you know, he's also a player I think a lot of Man U fans grew up with. I know he's someone I grew up with. He's close to our age. He's 27, but I remember first watching him play as like a fresh academy player, popping off, doing his thing, and he's always been a consistent part of the team. And with him going, now it really is like an entirely different team, pretty much, than what I grew up watching when I really started following the game. So it's sad, it's emotional, and then it doesn't help that in the same day Anthony, in his debut for Real Betis, gets MVP from La Liga for his game. So Man U's just in the gutter right now, all around. Our players going to other clubs, succeeding potentially. It's tough.
That's what's funny about it, is that now we really get to find out. And I think it's not really the biggest discovery. Man U's rotten. Let's put it how it is.
We know that. We
Yeah.
know that.
At this point, it's rotten to the core. But to an extent, people are going to say, oh, is Man U the problem, Rashford the problem? Now we're going to see, can Rashford go perform elsewhere? Or like Anthony, like you just mentioned, can he go perform elsewhere? Or will Man U improve without these players?
Yeah.
I think either way, I think, like we mentioned in the video that's not out yet, but by the time this is out, that will be out. Is talking about this is like a mutual win-win for United, Rashford, and he needs to be somewhere else, and they need to get rid of him. So at the end of the day,
This is the reset we need.
They need this reset. It's the end of an era in its own way, and like you said, Rashford's kind of the last of that generation of United. So it really is an end of an era in its own way, but hopefully for you guys, not for me, because it's like down with United all the way, but hopefully for you guys, this is the beginning, the true beginning of the Amorim era, and he's getting out some of these players he doesn't want. Obviously, to be fair to him, the real true beginning should be after the summer when he gets his transfers in, and he has a preseason, and then we judge him from there. But this is him really starting to show his influence on the club, and hopefully for you guys, that means only up in the future.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it has to be. I fully back Amorim and trust his vision, but it's just so sad seeing the state of the team right now and the bits and pieces that are there. And I will give credit today. United lost to Crystal Palace 2-0 at home, but you see the potential in the system and how the players are playing generally across the defense and the midfield. It's that final third, and that final third where Rashford play, and where we still have Højlund and Xerxes, where there is just there's no potential.
Lights out when a new coach comes in and you have two young, somewhat expensive. Well, Højlund's very expensive, but even Xerxes to an extent was expensive. Strikers
over 100 mil, over 100 mil at least.
And we're like, okay, new coach comes in, you guys both, this is your audition period. Go show me that at least one of you can lead the line for me. And today, in the loss to Crystal Palace, he started with Kobe Mainu.
Yeah.
9. That's crazy. Like, that's how you know.
And you know what, though? I was happier with that performance, with him up top.
There's potential with that. There's honestly more potential.
There's more potential with that than with either of those two up top. Part of that is due to poor service, I will say, but the other side of it is they're all they can do is hold up play and slow down the ball, but not in a good way. Like, you never feel safe, like, oh yeah, he's holding it off for the perfect pass where they're going to score from this. Like, you feel like he's fighting for his life to hold on to a ball that's just going to roll out for a throw-in. Like, you never feel like anything is coming from that. And, I mean, look, I don't want to speak too soon, but Victor Gyökeres, man, you know, a lot of experience under Amorim, popping off at Sporting. That might be the summer transfer we need to really kickstart a new era for United.
If you guys get Victor Gyökeres, then fair play, bro. Fair play. But then at the same time, you're going to have to sell either, or maybe even both, of Højlund and Xerxes.
They can both go if we get him. They can both go.
No one should be buying Højlund for more than $5, bro. That dude... And I hate saying this because Højlund, he was my guy in FIFA 22 career mode. But like, it's tough, man. It's tough out here. Or FIFA 23, whatever it was. It's tough out here. And the loss on that transfer is going to be crazy. So United, I know they're not in the best financial situation. I don't know what Gyökeres is looking like on the market, but...
Yeah, definitely a lot. And I want to point this out to you when I mentioned Antony. Like, with these players, with these Højlunds and Antony, I think they've actually generally improved under the recent period with Amorim, but it's the fact we paid so much for them, and the club's leadership and teams decided those were good prices to pay. To Nog, maybe other individuals at the club. I'm not going to pin the blame, but I think it's more an issue of just poor negotiating and decision making at those levels of paying those prices. I know for many years, many transfer windows, there's certainly been a United tax for some players where you hear a rumor of them going to one club and then United's brought in and the price goes up 20 mil. So it's a real thing. I don't think, though, the current leadership right now is going to have any tolerance for that, and I pray they don't, because I'm willing to take chances with these players, but it's not sustainable to do it when you're paying like 70 mil, 80 mil for them from Atalanta and not popping off in a way you would expect. Like, why are we doing that?
Yeah, I heard this on a podcast I was listening to the other day, and it was so true. That like United and Chelsea, to be fair, like buy players that aren't ready or like aren't on that level yet. They're like potential players, and then they're mad that they're not on that level. But they buy them for the money, like they're already on that level. It's just a level crazy.
Sancho.
Loop. Yeah. Oh my god. But this guy, it's a crazy loop of insanity where it's like you're paying top level money for someone that you're hoping will be top level in a few years, and then you're mad like, why is he not top level right now? So like, yeah, and then you're probably going to sell him for less than you paid him for, and then he's going to go become top level at some other club. So it's just like,
I will say we've seen some change at United, though. There have been a lot more signings recently of academy players, U18 players who are looking like they could be good for the team in a year or two. So I will say we're making those smaller investments that might be able to pay off.
You hope so.
I hope so.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see, especially now that he's staying in the league. It'll be very interesting to see how this plays out for the rest of the season. Because if he went abroad, like I still would have been keeping an eye on it, but like it doesn't feel as consequential. But seeing him now playing in the Prem for like a big team, well, not big in name compared to United, but big in terms of way higher in the table.
Where are they placed right now, Aston Villa? I haven't seen the table today.
They're like have 6th or 7th. Let me see. Table.
I'm googling this real quick.
They're 8th. Okay, they're still 8th, but still
they have a decent team though.
Yeah. Especially bringing in Rashford and Asensio. they're definitely pushing for. They want to get in those European spots.
Asensio is such another crazy signing. I just would not expect. This is the same Asensio who was at Madrid, correct? Like,
Yeah, and he went to
Yeah.
PSG. And
like that is insane to me.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm curious. I guess he is Spanish, so maybe there's like a link with Emery. Maybe he knows him and knows what he wants to get out of him. But I wouldn't have seen that one coming. So I'm very interested to see how he utilizes both Rashford and Asensio. Rashford, I get it a little more because they used to have Diaby, who went to the Saudi league, and now they're kind of maybe they want another attacking threat because they also lost John Duran. So
Yeah.
I can see where Rashford fits in a little more, but it'll be interesting to see how Asensio fits into that as well.
Yeah. We'll see who's more effective.
For sure. But I don't have any more crazy thoughts on that. This is something we definitely will revisit though, because
Yeah.
this season is already crazy.
Watch this dude score a hat trick first game with them. Like,
Oh my god.
if that happens, dude, I don't know what to say anymore.
Yeah, the main.
I'll buy a
question is,
City jersey. I don't know. Like,
if he scores a hat trick, you buy a City jersey.
yeah.
Okay, you stamp that. Viewers, stamp that. I'm stamping that. Eric, you stamp that. If Marcus Rashford scores a hat trick for Villa, Alexi will buy a Man City jersey and stamp that. I don't know when does that have to be by the end of the season or what?
You know what? Sure, but I meant his first game, but
First game. Okay.
I meant first game.
Okay,
But
well,
I don't
I guess
believe
it's all
he's
up
going to be
like-
scoring a hattie, so I'm willing to say the whole season because I don't believe.
okay, rest of the season, stamp it. Now we got that to look forward to as well. I say I
Can
don't
you
know.
put it-
Yeah,
I was just gonna say, if it happens, can you put it on your TikTok, just like no context, on one of your videos?
No
Just like you're
context,
just-
just
you're just
don't even
wearing
mention
that.
wearing it.
Yeah, you're just wearing it.
Jesus. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Well, now we get something to look forward to. Hopefully,
Love
Rashford
it.
scores a hat trick, and hopefully, I don't know when. I don't know if they played both of their legs. Well, they're both home and away this season yet, but I'm very
Aston Villa, Man U.
yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
They played both already or no?
I don't think so.
Can't find the second game on the schedule, but we'll be looking forward to that second game, whenever that is. If it hasn't
Whenever
happened
that
already.
is, that'll be something.
That'll be wild. So he's definitely going to be out for vengeance on that one. I'm sure of it. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely do a match reaction whenever that happens.
For surely.
All right. Well, if you have any other thoughts, thanks for watching. We greatly appreciate it, especially if you made it this far, because this is a long one.
This was a deep one.
We're like 2 hours into our recording. I don't know what it'll end up at when we are when this gets chopped up, but I appreciate you for sticking around. Some crazy topics, crazy week in sports and sports entertainment, and it's only gonna get crazier from here. A lot of big developments coming down the pike. So maybe not crazier than Luka and AD. Yeah, probably not bigger than Luka and AD, but even that itself, seeing how those teams play out, will be interesting. So stay tuned in. We got more episodes coming every week, segments dropping almost every day at this point. So a lot of content coming to you, and recommend this to someone you know might be into soccer, basketball, WWE, fashion, anything. We got something for you. So check it out. If you guys have any final thoughts before we send this off.
Nah, you final thoughted it out.
That's a crazy way to put it, but sounds good, and see you guys next week.
Peace, y'all.
Peace out, y'all. Bye.